You're listening to the Connection Care Community Podcast, a podcast designed to help you understand your body more deeply and feel more confident navigating your hormones, cycle, and fertility. Each episode offers grounded, research-informed guidance and integrative tools to support hormone health, embodied awareness, and informed choice. If you're seeking clarity, connection, and a more trusting relationship with your body, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Here's your host, the founder of Connection Care Therapy, Majida.
Hello and welcome to the Connection Care Community Podcast. My name is Majida, and today we are finally deep diving into one of my favorite topics, the gut. And not just in the way that we usually talk about the gut, food sensitivities or elimination diets or supplement protocols. Not that all of that is not extremely important, but we're going to be approaching this from an angle that's a little bit more layered. I want to talk about the gut as a place where the body keeps track of all of what we have been carrying. For many people, when they arrive at gut concerns, they're dealing with things like bloating or reflux or cramping or constipation or urgency that may feel unpredictable. And then the question becomes, what's wrong and how do I fix it? And that, as someone who has been there, is completely reasonable, makes perfect sense. There are very real biological conversations to be had, and we'll have some of those too, right? Clinical explanations, the testing that can offer clarity, all of that we will eventually cover. And in my experience, both personally and working with clients, those answers are oftentimes only a piece of the picture, a part of a puzzle, because the gut is more than a digestive organ. When you slow down enough and really consider it, the implications of the gut are significant and widespread. So the gut is one of the things I want to start with talking about when it comes to the gut is the gut as a neurological hub. What do I mean by that? It is deeply embedded in our immune function. We are constantly exchanging information between the gut and the brain. There's communication happening between the gut and our entire nervous system through the vagus nerve, through immune signaling, through hormones and neurotransmitters. Something that many may have heard at some point, or maybe some of you have never heard this at all, but approximately 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. So when stress hormones rise, gut acid changes, motility changes, the shifts in the microbiome are that family of bacteria that exists in the gut. This is own living little ecosystem in our gut. Not little, actually, it's quite robust, right? It's a big ecosystem. All of that can change when our emotions change, when we experience things like stress. Inflammation in the gut can influence mood and focus and even reproductive hormones. The communication runs in both ways. It's what's called bidirectional, right? The nervous system and our stress responses can influence the gut, and the gut can in turn also influence things like our entire nervous system, and therefore the entire way in which our body is networked. So we now have research that is mapping out all of this in detail. Long before that research, though, well, we can already see in the language that we use that it was hinting at this really deep and profound relationship. Right? If you've ever heard anyone say something, or you yourself have said, I can't stomach this, or this doesn't sit right, and then people will oftentimes put their hand on their belly, or it makes me sick to my gut to even think about fill in the blank. Those phrases persist because they reflect a very real lived physiology. The gut oftentimes registers things before even our mind has the ability to articulate it. And one of the most important reframes that I believe there is that a reactive gut is oftentimes a responsive gut. And I'll say that again for those of you who may be out there navigating gut health issues or gut health concerns. I want to offer that the reactivity of your gut is a signal as to how responsive your gut actually is. it's assessing things that are coming in, right? Whether it's food or stress or pressure or relational dynamics. And it's constantly asking, is this safe? And when the symptoms get louder, it's usually, quite often, after a long stretch of quieter signaling. So there's a piece of medical history that I think will be very helpful here. I'm going to talk about a common gut experience that many of us have going on out there. I'll start with, back in the day, peptic ulcers were largely attributed to stress and personality. So you may have the uncle who is like, the stressed out uncle always eating Tums, like it's a cliche, right? Stereotypical representations like, oh, he's so stressed and his gut is acting up, like, so he's taking a bunch of Tums. But for many, many years in medical spaces, the driven or the anxious or the high achieving individuals were thought to be more prone to peptic ulcers. So patients were then told to relax, right, or change how they related to pressure. And then there was a really transformative finding on what's called H. pylori, right? It's a bacterial infection that turns out to be responsible for a large percentage of ulcers. Now, H. pylori is common in most all of our gut microbiomes. However, in certain individuals, myself included, we are amongst the unfortunate smaller minority where that particular bacterium, if certain all kinds of things come together, and I'll talk about what that looks like in my own life, in my own situation, then we can be very vulnerable to this bacteria getting out of check and leading to a lot of really intense issues, which includes the potentiality of ulcers. So what was found was that it wasn't uncommon to treat the infection and many ulcers healed. And that discovery mattered. It mattered because it corrected, I would say, oversimplification. However, the story does not end there. What we understand now is that chronic stress can actually weaken the gut lining. It can alter immune response, and it can shift the microbial environment in a way that makes infections like H. pylori more likely to take hold and to persist. So while stress wasn't the whole story, the bacteria itself wasn't the whole story either. The interaction or the intersection between the two mattered. And that's how gut stuff oftentimes works. You have the tissue conversation, and you also have the nervous system conversation. You have the microbes, and you have the lived experience. You have biology that is unfolding, but without context, it can be very confusing for many. And if we only address one layer, progress is limited and can oftentimes completely stall. This is one of the reasons why I literally always do nervous system work when I am doing any kind of gut supportive work, because the nervous system is foundational. To kind of illustrate this a little bit more, I'll share about my own experience, because I think it'll just kind of put some of these pieces even more so into place. My gut symptoms didn't appear out of nowhere. In addition to having my gut just be vulnerable, I was put on hormonal contraceptives at a really young age, and I've talked about that before. And even before then, I wasn't breastfed as a child due to being born in a military hospital and certain medical traumas that both me as a baby and my mom as a new mom went through. And then even after that, I was showing symptoms of allergies, but instead of seeing the allergies, which is not uncommon when there's gut microbiome things happening, with young kids as well as with adults. But instead of seeing me as a kiddo who was experiencing allergies, my pediatrician just kept giving me antibiotics. And for what exactly, we still don't know. But those were things that probably laid the foundation of me having a more sensitized gut microbiome overall. So you take that history, and then I go through a pretty significant period of sustained stress where my nervous system was rarely powering down. I was experiencing the wired but tired kind of state of being that many people recognize, where we're functioning on the outside, like we're doing all of the things on the outside, but we're deeply, deeply depleted underneath. And over time, my digestion started to react. Inflammation was increasing, and next thing I know, I was dealing with it was a road to figure out what was going on specifically, but led me to functional testing and to eventually find out I had a pretty intense H. pylori infection. And downstream of that, right, I'm like putting the pieces of the story together for you. It wasn't just the H. pylori infection. It was my cortisol levels had gotten to the point where they were so high at a point that eventually my system was like, this lady is not going to power down, so we're going to power down for her. So we actually saw me being in a state of adrenal fatigue where my labs were showing that my cortisol levels were dangerously low. So you have the stress dynamic leading to a dysfunctional HPA axis, which then led to hormone concerns like estrogen dominance concerns and fibroids, and all around all of this, we're seeing gut dysbiosis, right? We're seeing gut health issues, and H. pylori really took over in my system. So in reflecting on all of this and sharing this with you, I have really come to a place, and it's certainly amazing being on the other side, right? So I can speak with a little bit of looking back as to some of the things that I was experiencing. I no longer see those experiences as a personal failure. It was my physiology was adapting to do the best that it could with what was really a very long and intensive stress load. I was racing, but that had a cost. I was overriding things like hunger cues and what have you, but that had a cost. I was putting my head down, pushing through, again, had a cost. I was minimizing my experience of exhaustion, and again, that has a cost. So once my gut barrier and my microbial balance were compromised, hormone dysregulation was really right around the corner. As I mentioned, the cascade of that into estrogen dominance and then into developing fibroids. That was really, it's a common progression that I see in my practice, because the connection between gut health and hormone health is something that is rarely talked about, is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about deep diving into it here on this podcast, in my Substack, and as well as going deeper in the courseworks that I am developing around our cycles and menstrual cycles, and that's understanding that in relationship to other systems of our body. So for today, it just feels very important to name that the gut oftentimes carries and expresses really what the nervous system has been managing. Not always, and never as a replacement for testing or treatment or what have you, but as it's an important conversation to integrate into our overall wellness and well-being, and definitely for those of us who may be navigating things related to hormone health and fertility. So when I support clients with gut concerns, I tend to hold two sets of questions at once. Right? The first set is clinical. What is happening to the tissue? What are the labs revealing? Is there infection, inflammation, dysbiosis? This clarity matters. This testing is very, very important. And guesswork is not supportive, right? I want to see what your body is actually showing, what is actually showing. And because of that, in order to get that information, it's very important to actually have lab work. The second set of questions is more on the quieter side, but still just as important, is the questions of what has your body been sustaining for a long time? What signals are being overridden? Are they hunger, rest, discomfort, your intuition? What is or has been requiring you to self-silence in order to maintain? These are not abstract emotional inquiries. These are deeply, deeply meaningful physiological questions, because a nervous system that is in chronic vigilance is going to divert energy away from digestion, right? It makes sense. Think about it. You're running from a lion, right? The cliche example, running from a lion or some kind of danger, right? Is it more important that you get away from that danger, or is it more important that you digest in that moment? And the body is going to say, yo, we got to make sure that this person stays alive. So the energy is going to go towards making sure that you stay alive, right? Which means diverting energy from other places and spaces in the body. Oftentimes those spaces and places are going to be responsible for things like nervous system repair, hormone health, immune system, etc. So repair processes will then slow down, and your motility is going to shift, and your enzyme production will change, and the body is going to prioritize survival over restoration. And in that state, even the most well-designed protocols can absolutely plateau. I remember when I was studying under several really renowned people in the functional health field around gut health, and I had one of these practitioners just say flat out, if you're not attending to the nervous system, the rest of your gut health protocol doesn't stand a chance. And I remember just being like, whatever, dude, whatever. But truth be told, my arrogance got me nowhere with myself. And certainly, not when working with other clients. It's absolutely essential to tend to the nervous system. Right? This is gut health support that is truly integrative, is going to include nervous system regulation support right alongside biological treatment. And that may look like things like slow breathing or consistent regulated meal times, adequate rest. It's the big one, right? And another big one, relational safety. So all of these things influence your vagal tone, blood flow to the digestive tract, and our body's overall ability and capacity to repair. I want to offer a very simple, tangible practice for those of you who are looking for something to just explore when it comes to navigating your own relationship between your gut and your nervous system. This is a 3-minute practice. It's not about labs. It's not about supplements. It's about doing something really simple and really repeatable that can make a sustainable difference. So I invite you to explore this on your own. The exercise is more so outlined on my Substack, but what it involves is lying down, placing one hand over your lower ribs and your belly, and doing a slow inhale right through the nose and allowing your belly to soften as you exhale, and noticing, right, taking some time to notice things like temperature and movement and tension and ease. Instead of analyzing, you're just getting familiar with your breath and your body, and observing whatever arises, whether it's words or images or sensations, or perhaps nothing at all. So taking this 3-minute breath exercise and 3 minutes of noticing, right? This noticing exercise really, and specifically placing them, if possible, prior to you eating, prior to you taking a meal and just noticing, right? Just noticing the difference. As I said, this exercise is more so outlined on my Substack. I invite you to go on over there, check it out. Please do, when you're stopping by, leave a comment or subscribe. I would love that. It just lets me know that you're out there and that this work is serving you and providing my community with what they're looking for. So please do stop over to Substack for that exercise in more detail. To close out today, I also want to just put on the table, this is part of a gut health series that I will be doing throughout this month. Obviously, gut supportive protocols are a big part of the work that I do. If you are looking for more structured support, I do offer functional lab testing, including the GI map through my lab shop. You can go on over to my website at connectioncaretherapy.com and check out my lab shop, where I have educational resources, supplement guides, and much more. As well as you can find out more information on these functional labs and whether or not they'll serve you. My work obviously weaves in physiology and nervous system regulation work, as well as really working to integrate your lived experience, because truth is, the body does not separate those domains. The body does not compartmentalize in that way. So as I said, there will be this entire gut health series on my Substack, where I'll go into the science and practical tools, and where the Cycle Connection, my course, online course that I'll be launching, may have as you're listening to this, it may have already been launched. But yeah, I'll go into all of that and where gut health and hormone rhythms intersect and connect. So you'll find all of that information linked in my show notes. If you're listening to this on YouTube or another platform, please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and just let me know how you're doing and how this information may resonate with you. So I think that is all that I have for today on this topic. We'll close out here, and I look forward to chatting with you next time. It's been a joy and a pleasure to spend these moments with you. And as always, stay connected.
That does it for this episode of the Connection Care Community Podcast with Majida. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you're leaving with a fresh perspective on your body and overall well-being, along with practical tools you can integrate into daily life. The support doesn't stop here. Be sure to connect with us online at connectioncaretherapy.com for more resources to guide you on your journey. You can also find us on Substack and connect with Majida on Instagram at Majida Sai'da. Remember to rate, review, and share this podcast. And most importantly, stay connected.